All right, I have 4 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and get started, just so we make sure that we're aware of everyone's time. Again, I want to thank everybody for being here today. For those that don't know me, my name is Tommy Howard. I'm president of the brokerage services for the Norton Agency. And we're very fortunate today to have a great panel of folks who I'll introduce here in a minute. I did want to go over a couple of ground rules. I think most of you have probably lived on Zoom for the last 6 to 8 weeks and are very familiar with it. But we would like, of course, for folks to please keep on mute. And as you have questions, we can put them in the chat box for you to log in. We'll also be recording this session. So you're free to we'll send that out to everyone that's attending today. So you may share that. We will also we have some charts that I'll show here shortly. And if you'd like copies of any of that, we can get to that to you as well. So again, welcome everyone. I wanted to take a minute to introduce our esteemed panel. First, I wanted to recognize Diane Brown. She is our partner and broker in our Habersham office and located in Clarksville. She is a partner and a broker with the Norton Agency. She's been with us since 1989, but she has over 42 years worth of experience in the real estate business. You look great for being in the business this long. Pretty
Every
amazing.
day's a day in paradise.
That's it. That's it. We also have Miss Kim Waters. Kim Waters is also a partner with the Norton Agency. She's located in our Gainesville corporate office and does a lot of Gainesville, Hall County real estate. And Kim, no slouch herself, has over 32 years of experience in the business, has also owned her own brokerage company at one time. So we're happy to have Kim on. We also have Brad Abernathy, who is a partner and senior vice president of the Norton Agency. He's 29 years in the business. So again, a lot of experience, and we're happy to have him. And he started the Abernathy Cochran Group under the Norton umbrella back in 2009. So we're happy to have Brad. I want to recognize John Drew. John Drew is a senior VP and partner over in our Georgia 400 office. He's been in the business for 30 plus years, and we're happy to have him. And he'll be talking a little bit about on the commercial side of things, part of the Norton Commercial Group. And then lastly, the baby of the bunch, Stephen Lovett. I say baby, but you've still been in the business for 14 years. And you're the only one that actually has a real estate degree, because they didn't have it when we all went through school from the Terry School of Business. So we're glad to have you as well. And Stephen's a partner with the Norton Commercial Group as well. So with the introductions, what I'd like to do real quick is take a few minutes. I'm going to share a few charts, just 2 or 3 minutes on what we see in the activity, so everybody can kind of get an overview of the numbers and what's happening. And then we'll go to our panel and have a discussion and ask some questions. So I'm going to share my screen real quick. And hopefully everybody can see that. So I have 4 slides. Let's see if I can get them to move here. So the first one I wanted to share with you, this really is just going to show you our months of inventory and what's selling in the market. This is actually over 15 counties that we've been tracking. I'll mention those real quick so that you understand what the markets are. This includes Banks County, Barrow County, Cherokee, Dawson, Forsyth, Franklin, Gwinnett, Habersham, Hall, Jackson, Lumpkin, Pickens, Rabun, Stevens, Walton, and White. What you're seeing here is the amount of transactions. That's the number in black that's been happening over the last 12 months. You can see the months of inventory. That's the red dot, and then the active listings, which is in yellow. So you can actually see where our hot spots are as far as price point is concerned. Really, that market under $350,000 has been the sweet spot. As you can tell, certainly under 150s, there's very little inventory. But if it was, it would be selling very, very quickly, as you can see in the months of supply. So again, just kind of gives you an idea of the market, very strong in that under 400 market amongst those counties. This is our inventory by price point. I think the thing to point out here is it's actually fairly consistent And I'm sorry, I may be blocking some of you. Let me see if I can move this out of the way. So if you actually look at March, when the pandemic really started and the quarantine, you can tell where our numbers went down as far as our inventory was concerned. The good news is April and May, it started to tick back up. So I think there was probably some question of what was happening in the market. And as people got comfortable with where they were, they started to get their properties back on the market. And this is designed by price point. And as you can tell over the last 12 months that it is, or 13 months on this, all of them are very consistent as far as the inventory is based on price point. And you'll notice there's not a whole lot of fluctuation in that. This is actually the sales. This is what sold. So this is very interesting. As the listings were going down in March, the sales were going up. Of course, a lot of that means that these were houses that were under contract prior to the pandemic, or at least to the quarantine. So a lot of that was the sales as we were going into the quarantine. And then, of course, you can tell in April, as things have come down a little bit. I'll tell you, the Norton Agency is tracking about 75% of where we were last April. We actually feel pretty confident and actually feel pretty good about that, that the market was, that has sustained that well. But you can tell we're January and February, which are typically slower months. So they were, but for us, they were actually above average. So we started this year very strong, and we were very happy to see that. And we certainly needed it as we are entering this new way of life. And then lastly, I think this is a great way to show kind of really what's happening is that months of supply, which is that blue line, versus the sales volume. Again, this is over the 12, this is a 12-month sales volume for those counties. So 10.4 billion, not quite in March, about 10.3. That was really the peak. And you're starting to see, of course, that month of supply start to creep back up in April. And then, of course, that volume kind of come down, which is expected as we're moving into this market. But overall, I'll say that I know we've been very happy with where the market is today. Of course, our panel will share kind of their thoughts and what they see out there in the market. So I'm going to go back to our panel real quick. So this is going to be a question for everybody. And Brad, I'm going to start with you. And if you'll just give us a quick overview of what you're seeing in the marketplace, maybe what your the attitudes of buyers and sellers, and what you how they're reacting to the quarantine.
Okay, what I'm seeing in the market is, I think the market is a little bit slower, but it's still very robust. I like numbers, and I track numbers too. The Hall County numbers, for instance, 2019 was the best year of Hall County real estate ever, as far as houses go, as far as number of sales of houses and the average sales price. But, you know, and for our clients, we were tracking the first 4 months of this year, the number of sales is actually up 3.8% in Hall County from last year. And last year was the best ever. The average sales price this year is up 7.8% so far for the first 4 months. And the median sales price is up 12%. Yeah, there's more houses selling now than there was a year ago. I think that what we saw is everybody got a little bit slower, a little bit more safer in how they looked at things. But as far as our group goes, we've closed twice as many this year so far than we did a year ago, this time period. So we're not seeing everybody all the time, but we're busier than we've ever been.
Great. Kim, same question to you.
I have, like Brad, had my best first quarter ever, as I heard many people say the same thing from a company standpoint as well. So we came into this year, like Brad said, with very robust activity. Between the time frame of, say, March 15th and April 15th, I think we saw a distinct slowdown there with people just nervous and not knowing what to expect. Since April 15th, I would say we've seen activity come back to more of a normal, with average people buying average houses. That has not stopped. People are still getting married, getting divorced, moving up, moving down. we're still seeing activity out there. That's the only slowdown I can see in looking out there is activity on the more expensive properties. Even though we have sold in this year a property right at $1 million just recently, I'm seeing less calls and less inquiries on those properties. And I would say that's largely due to the jumbo mortgage market going away for now.
Great. Diane, you're in a little bit more of a rural market up in the Habersham, White County area. What are you seeing in that marketplace?
I'm seeing that we're receiving calls from Atlantans that are wanting to move north, nice home with acreage. Majority of them are going to be cash buyers, which is a good thing because, as Kim said, the jumbo market is pretty well dead in the water. But I'm seeing more of that. Now, you still have the people that are still blue collar workers that are really needing shelter and homes. And we're lagging behind in that. The market is slow, and it's only slow because we don't have the inventory, of course, to go through the roof if we had that. But overall, I feel like that we're in a good position. And when I say good position, based on our socioeconomic conditions of where we are health-wise. I know that people still have concern, but they're still willing and they want to get out there and buy property. I still think it's a good time to put your house on the market. If you're in a higher price range, you need to go in knowing that likely it will not be a fast sale, but that doesn't say that it won't, because we do have these buyers that are coming from the city that have decided, maybe I don't want to be that close to anybody anymore. You know, I do want to spread out so that if I have to social distance again, then I'm going to be in good shape. So that's pretty much what I'm seeing. I do see that on Rabun, Burton, and Seed, the prices dropped over the last 3 months. The average sale price was $850,000 compared to the 3 months before of being 1.2 almost. So that's some difference. And of course, there's fewer numbers. There was 41 sales in the last 3 months. And months before, of course, it was much higher than that.
But still some activity on it, which is
great. Yeah, but still activity, yes, yeah. Absolutely.
So I'll switch to my commercial guys real quick. John Drew, obviously handle most of North Georgia. You're located on the Georgia 400 market. What are you seeing as a sense of attitude from the commercial side and activity?
Well, let me tell you that the industrial market is on fire in the Atlanta area and certainly in North Georgia. The last mile fulfillment centers are just being leased left and right. You may have seen here in the last couple of days where Amazon has leased 2 million square foot facilities on the south side of town after 30 days or so ago, leasing 1 million square feet in the Beaufort market. Walmart has just leased 1 million square feet in Jackson County off of 85. And then we're also seeing the smaller industrial users still very active in the market. And so that's really the leading sector that we're dealing with right now is the industrial sector. However, we're also seeing activity in the multifamily market as well as the residential development market, and less so on the retail side and less so on the office side. The office construction continues to go great guns. The Norfolk Southern headquarters down in Midtown they haven't missed a beat with construction, nor has the State Farm facility at the perimeter. It's still underway in a big way. They haven't slowed down construction whatsoever. So all in all, there has been a step back. Some of the development deals that we've had under contract have asked for more time for due diligence, more time for closings, and a few have actually dropped out, but not very many.
Right. And you mentioned it seems like the office space that was already in play is continuing to go. Do you think there'll be people rethinking office space as they're rethinking social distancing?
Well, right now, Google, Apple, Microsoft, IBM, Facebook, they're all working from home. Of course, the Norton companies are working from home. We're going through that process right now to determine how do we social distance, how do we sanitize, how do we create separation. And Tommy, you're actually leading that charge for us. So that's pretty typical for every office user. They're having to rethink how they do business. Are they going to bring people back to the office? How they're going to bring back people to the office? Are they going to stagger them? Are they going to, of course, we have some offices that are shared. We have group space. And so everybody's rethinking that right now.
Okay. Stephen, I know you have a lot of activity right now. What do you see happening in the marketplace?
Well, my primary focus is commercial and specifically land. And I will echo exactly what John Drew just said about industrial. All of those announcements he just mentioned are huge announcements. We were already absorbing industrial space at a good clip before this started. And now you've had three, primarily the I-85 North Corridor is our home base. And you've had three large facilities around 1 million square feet, all have been gobbled up in the last month. So there is more demand for that than we ever saw coming. Also even just we saw in Commerce just a couple weeks ago, they're still moving forward with the battery plant there that is bringing 2,000 jobs to the area. But just a couple weeks ago, they announced they're doing a second battery plant there that's going to increase the investment from 1.7 billion to 2.5 billion. And now all of a sudden you're having an area that talked about 2,000 jobs, and now all of a sudden they're talking about maybe as many as 5,000 jobs over the next many years. So all these people that are out of work may have some opportunity there. But as far as commercial land, retail, office, that sort of stuff, it is very sluggish and slow right now. The leasing folks are very busy trying to figure out how to work out issues and payment problems. Landlords and tenants are working well together, I would say, generally speaking, because there is an attitude of we're all in this together. And then residentially, from a land perspective, the national builders have kind of put things on hold as far as new land acquisition. A couple of them in the last week have told me, hey, I now have the green light to do deals. I was talking about a tract in South Hall this morning that I had 2 different national builders that told me they're going to make an offer on. So that activity has really picked up. And then one other thing I'll plug, and kind of touching on Diane's comment about space, I have had more activity in sales in 2 to 10 acre tracts than I've had in the last 2 months than I've had in the last year and a half, I would say. People that can find semi-affordable land with a little bit of space with access to utilities are out looking for that stuff. So what I would have told you a month ago is very different than what I'm telling you today. Things are good right now.
Good to hear. Diane Brown, you mentioned something earlier I wanted to kind of come back to. You actually had said the phrase, it's still a good time to buy real estate. I get asked that question all the time. I'm just curious from the rest of the group, and Diane, I'll start with you, but what is it a good time to buy and sell real estate? What are you telling clients when they ask you that question?
I'm telling them yes. Particularly if you've got some, needless to say, I'm saying yes. But no, I think that particularly for people that have cash, and really, I'm encouraging them to invest and build houses. Buy it right, and then be able to build a home under $250,000. And it would go like gangbusters. And you're going to do much better, needless to say, than you are with it being if you're holding it in a bank for absolute sure. But I'm encouraging them to do that. And those that need shelter, and we all have to have shelter, I'm saying, yes, don't wait. Don't see what's going to happen. Life is going to go on. America is going to come back again. I have all the confidence in the world in that. We're not a country to be stifled and stomped and put down. So yeah, we're going to come back. I say, carry on life. If we can become imprisoned to ourselves if we don't keep our mindset right. And I know that this pandemic is a different thing, but it's keeping mind over matter. I feel like that we move on. Great. So yes, I'm saying buy and sell, keep the market going. And that's how we're going to survive.
Brad, how about you? Clients asking that question?
Yes, it's an excellent time to buy. I mean, their rates right now are still at 50-year lows. It's, if you're not going to buy right now, at least refinance. Call, some of our, great lenders and refinance. But I think that there's something we did a little while ago, and we asked all the agents at the Norton Agency, you were working on a deal with a buyer moving here to this area from a different state. Can you name all these states? And so we did this thing a little while back, and it still holds true. I think that this market here has a gravitational pull for, in the world. This is a wonderful place to live, and people know it now. And I think that a lot of that's because of the social media and other things. People are finding out about Northeast Georgia and the pull that we have. The Norton agents that I asked, we found out that we'd helped people buy here from 32 different states and 10 different countries over the past 5 years. And that's amazing. So yes, it's a great time to buy. House prices, in the very beginning of this pandemic, we had a couple people that tried to get out of a contract by renegotiating price because of the pandemic and thinking this was going to be another recession or whatever, and they tried to lower the price. One of our sellers did do that. A couple of our sellers did not, and we haven't seen prices drop here at all.
And there's still a pent-up demand, right? I mean, that's what we're carrying over is the, December, January, February, where people needed housing, and they still do, and we were still under inventoried. So you still see that? Yeah,
and Diane mentioned the higher price ranges, but the typical market, 95% of our market in Hall County is under $500,000, and that's the bread and butter of our community, and those prices are not falling. Those prices are holding steady. We used to say that when my father was in real estate a long time ago, it was all location, location, location. And several years ago, we got to thinking it's really not that. It's location, condition, and price are the three things that drive, real estate and sales. And today, the number one factor of that is condition. If you're a seller out there, there's no more excuses for not having a great condition for a house because people won't want to come see it. But if you can improve your condition and make sure the curb appeal is there, and you're going to get top dollar for your home. Hope that answers your question.
It does, yeah. Kim, anything to add to that?
I've had a couple of instances this past week. A first-time buyer who's lost out on several during the last month said to me, I would have thought that this situation will be going for me, that I would have maybe more of an advantage because of what's going on. But no, in that 200 and below market, nothing's changed. It's still a tight inventory. There's still multiple offers. You still have to make your highest and best offer with your first offer, because like I tell those buyers, if you like it, somebody else is going to like it. And as often happens, just because we're in this pandemic hasn't changed the market for these, like what Brad called average houses, especially those below the 300 mark. I did have a buyer get scared and back out at the beginning when the markets first fell. but already back under contract because they saw that our real estate market is not changing as far as losing value. It's the best place you can park your market. Your money. We're going to see the markets as far as stock markets volatility, but real estate is by and far going to stay where it is and even grow in this, the safest place to park your money, especially when you look at the rental demand out there still. We're still seeing a lot of demand for investors, and those investors are oftentimes the ones competing with these first-time home buyers looking for rental properties.
Speaking of investors, Stephen, I know I know the answer to your question. Yes, it's a good time to buy, sell, invest, as you alluded to earlier in your comments. My question to you now, though, is what changes do you see happening in the overall market for commercial? How will this impact us moving forward in changing deals? We've heard of things, I think somebody alluded to earlier, is rent deferment, or even folks looking to even abatement if possible, but I know most investors won't allow that. But what do you see as the changes happening that moving forward in real estate?
Well, I would say just quickly on the lease structure, typically what we're seeing is landlords trying to work it out. You know, if people are going to go out of business, giving them a break on rent isn't going to help them not go out of business. They're going to go out of business. But at the same time, if they do think it's a sustainable business, basically they're lengthening the term of the lease. They're giving them a couple free months, and then they're either re-amortizing into the rest of the lease or that sort of thing. So we're seeing that. But I do think it's a little too early to tell what this really looks like on the other side. You know, is there requirements? And let me say, first off, thank God we're in Georgia and that we get to be out and find out first. I hope I'm right about that. But, you know, what happens to these gyms that need a certain amount of members to make money, and all of a sudden their typical class size is 30, and because of having to have more space, they can only fit 15 people in there? You know, that hits the bottom line. Same thing with restaurants. They may need more space. I mean, that is kind of things we're looking at. I think you see outdoor seating become an extreme premium at this point, and the ability to space out areas where people feel comfortable come in and buy stuff again. I think that you're also going to see the way multifamily is done may change a little bit, whether it's just the layout of the floor plans for the rooms themselves. You may start seeing more of a work at home office setup for these people that are transient, who are commuters or that sort of thing. You may have co-work, share space, office space in apartment complexes where people can go work and be out of their house, but not have to get in a car and still be, you know, socially distant and all that. So it's going to be early to tell at the end, or it's too early to tell, but at the end of the day, a lot of the buildings that are there are already there. So whether or not it makes sense to reconfigure them for some of this is yet to be seen.
John, how about you? Any changes you see in the marketplace?
Yeah, let me just comment on some of the things that Stephen had mentioned. Retail is certainly struggling. You know, the malls are starting to open up. The retail strips are starting to open up. Avalon's opening, Halcyon's opening, North Georgia Premium Outlet Mall has opened. But if you go during the week, you don't see much traffic. I think you see a little bit more on the weekends, but then you got to figure out how to socially distance, how to try on clothes that somebody else has already tried on. So some of these things are real challenges, and we're going to see a lot of the big boxes go out of business. We're already seeing some of the big retail boxes, like even like Best Buy. You know, it'd be interesting to see if they're going to be able to make it. J.Crew has already declared bankruptcy. Macy's has cut back a significant amount. Unless you're a Home Depot or a Walmart or a grocery store right now, those, you know, you're not doing very well on the retail side of things. And as Stephen had mentioned, landlords are having to restructure leases and add on term and delay rent payments and so forth. So it'll, you know, I think the retail environment is going to change, and who has been ordering groceries from online and having them delivered from Kroger within 2 hours? Well, the Drew family. You know, we didn't do that before this pandemic. And so you can go online and get groceries delivered, you know, 3 times a week as opposed to going to the store. So I think that's a big thing with online shopping. My wife has always, over the last 10 years, done online shopping. Well, guess what? John's doing it too. So everybody is there. So the technology is certainly changing the way we do business. How do we do conference calling? Well, we do Zoom calls. Do we meet in person? No, we do Zoom calls. So these are things that are affecting the way we do business and changing the way we do business and accelerating the use of technology for our culture.
I think that's a great point. And I think it's interesting because this technology is not new. We've had this technology for several years, but we've all been forced to adapt it. And now that we have, I think that it'll continue to be a normal part of our everyday processes. So it's interesting. I think it's just forced us to use things that have already been in play. Kim, I'll go to you from a residential standpoint. What do you see the changes moving forward from a residential standpoint?
Well, as far as going and showing, that's a little different now, in that we don't load people up in our car anymore. But people still want to see houses, and sometimes those houses are occupied. So we're seeing sellers have hand sanitizer at the door. Sometimes they have gloves. They want you to put on their gloves when you get to the house. We did that this past weekend because they want to see you put on clean gloves when they walk in their house. And most of you would agree that probably more than half the homes we show that are occupied have cameras. So they're watching to make sure that you put on their gloves and asking that people who come wear masks. So just how we show houses is different. A lot of times all the lights are on. We touch as little things as possible. And when we do touch those, if the seller has requested, we will have a glove on. But just being very careful about the, sometimes we even wearing shoe coverings, just careful about the showing part of it. As far as how it's changed, we're not seeing as much, again, activity in that higher price point. And I think that's because of the jumbo market. But other than that, I would say the 500 and below, like what Brad said, was the bread and butter of what we do. We're still seeing a lot of showings within those price points. And so mainly how we do it is all that's changed.
Do you see technology being used more often, the virtual tours, less showings, or appointment only? But even I've heard of agents actually taking their iPhone, walking through the house, virtually showing the house to the client.
Yes, I did my first 3D tour yesterday.
Yeah.
So now there are these easily 3D tours to do. And I even have a buyer from California who's saying he's going to buy a lake house without ever seeing it. I'll keep you posted on that, but he's saying that he's going to contract for this lake house and will buy it based upon what an inspection report reveals. And I have sold homes that way before, but they did come see it the day of closing. This person is saying he will buy it without ever seeing it, with virtual tours and with an inspection report. We shall see. But
Wow.
Most people still want to walk through a house.
Rightfully so. Brad, how about you? Anything you see significantly changing?
Again, I think that it's pretty amazing. When I was showing this past week to somebody who's moving here to be closer to kids and grandkids, and I look like a clown in the house with a mask on and shoe coverings. It's really different. But we were looking at most of the homes we were looking at were brand new. And the 2 or 3 that we looked at that were occupied, it was significantly different with the buyer's interest level, because they were a little bit dirtier and they were this and that, and they weren't as clean at the front door. And, so I think the market's fantastic, but I think occupied homes is time for the seller to make the condition better, because people are going to expect it, or you're not going to be able to sell it today.
Neither of you mentioned it, but I did want to point out one thing that we've seen is some of the processes that go along with real estate closings, for example. Obviously, those are much different today than what they have been. Inspections, when folks go to the house. Do you think that those things will continue to be that way and in the foreseeable future? And I'll say the reason I say that is even if after the pandemic, I feel like we found some efficiencies in all of these things, the way we're operating. So I don't know if y'all have seen that as well.
I did go to a closing yesterday, and it was the same attorney who had me sit in the lobby the last time we went. This time we all did go in wearing masks and sitting 6 feet apart from all the parties. And then, of course, hand sanitizer passed around. So it was a lot different environment, but we did get everyone to the closing table, because I have been to one in the past month where the buyer and the seller sat in their cars with the attorney running back and forth between the cars outside. And I was just thankful it wasn't raining, because I was sitting in my car too, watching it all. So it's evolving. I was thankful yesterday that we all did get to go into the closing room. We were just distanced. And I think that's the way it's going to be until we have a viable treatment or a vaccine.
Diane,
I've noticed
yeah.
in our office, of course, we have an attorney that is in the front part of the office, and I have witnessed more closings on the hood of cars than I would have ever thought in my life, ever. But it's not bad. It gets done, so, and everybody's happy. But I do want to say one thing, Tommy, and this is, I was just sitting here thinking, and there was an older, very wise gentleman that would usually come see me once a week when I first went into real estate, which was back in the 80s. And he told me one day, he said, "Now, little lady, I want to tell you something." He said, "Here in North Georgia, we are in the fruit basket of the world." And he said, people don't know that yet. He said, because in Georgia, the southern land was where it was all at. You could plant cotton and you could plant huge crops, which he said is valuable. But he said North Georgia is going to come into its own, and people are going to realize this is where they need to be. Well, lo and behold, Mr. Alley was so right. And I've thought about that so many times. He was wise, and I think that we would be very unwise to not take his advice.
Great advice.
We're lucky there where we are. The Harris poll did a survey this week. 39% of urban Americans are rethinking where they're living now, thinking about suburban or rural life. Hall County, Habersham, all these counties around here are about to see a population boom, I believe.
I've never seen so many work trucks in my neighborhood that I have over the past 4 weeks. So many people doing home improvements, go to Lowe's, go to Home Depot, watch the lines. People are sitting at home looking at the things that need to be fixed. They're also sitting at home saying, hey, I need more space, or I think I'm ready to make that move. And so, yeah, I think you're right, Brad. There are people that are looking at what their current conditions are and trying to make decisions of where they want to be in the future. I don't want to use, go ahead.
I'll just be real quick. One of my national builder clients, it's one of the top 10 in the country, said to me during the last recession, they made it out by going into the heart of Atlanta and finding infill deals that were very attractive and value-based and building them out. Those are all gone. It takes 5 years to entitle a piece of property in Atlanta. So they're now looking out at the suburbs, almost thinking about the opposite, going out, coming in, and finding areas with good schools, location to natural amenities and that sort of thing. And so they're telling me some of their strategies, exactly what Brad said, is let's go out there and get people to these destinations that they want to drive to and live at,
That's a great point.
There used to be a commute. If you had a commute to Atlanta, you only wanted it to be so far, but everybody's realizing now that they can work from home or in flexible hours. And so that commute becomes a lot greater.
And the main question I'm getting, because we're getting a lot of calls on acreage properties, And the main thing they want to know is what kind of internet service can they get? Because like he said, I want to know if I can work from home.
You're exactly right. In fact, last year I lost a large deal because there was not the internet that they needed, the speed that they needed, and the cost that it was going to take to get it there was, well, it was out of reason. But that is very important. And I think all of our communities and counties need to be well aware of that.
Yeah, technology infrastructure is going to be huge moving forward, especially when companies relocate, builders develop new subdivisions. They want to know what kind of technology. I do want to move on to the next question because I think it's probably the most important one, and I want to give you guys an opportunity to answer it before we take some questions. But and John Drew, I'll start with you on the commercial side. If you had to give one piece of advice to your clients today as far as real estate, what would it be?
Well, that's the $64,000 question, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
You know, in light of COVID-19, I think the key thing is that we are making changes. We're going to have to continue to make changes. You know, and we are in the process of evolving and adapting to a new normal. Yeah, we always heard about the new normal coming out of the Great Recession in 2008. Well, this is a whole different ball of wax. And hopefully I know personally I've had to rethink the way I do business, how I live, how I communicate, how I interact with folks. And I'm not alone. We're all doing that. So in terms of advice, I think you have to be flexible and you have to be adaptive, and we'll have to continue to operate in a changing environment.
Yep. Diane Brown, how about you? What advice are you giving clients today?
To keep their reality. Our world is where it is, but we have to maintain what we know to be sensible, even in the midst of what feels like a time of work. But we've got to stay focused and stay focused in a positive way. And that applies in real estate. That applies in every aspect of our life. So I think we need to move forward and not stand here spinning our wheels, because we had a new normal in 2000 after 9/11. We had to adjust from that. And then we had the big
Great
mess.
Recession. Yeah.
Yes. And so we adjusted to that, and we're going to adjust to this.
Brad, how about you? What opportunities, what are you telling clients out there?
Well, if there's any realtors listening to this, they may not like this, but this is what I would tell clients. It's incredible when things start going good in the economy around here, everybody jumps into real estate. They think it's an easy business. And I will say that there were over 1,900 different agents that sold at least one property in Hall County last year. 80% of those people only sold 3 or less. I think that it's because of what Stephen said a minute ago, with national builders going to downtown urban areas, and now they're thinking that they need to go to suburban areas. You know, there's a lot of stuff that we have to know, and we have to help people. So I would tell clients that please stop taking advice on what to do with your real estate from part-time agents that are not going to be in the business in a few years. So, you know, that's what I would say. I mean, I think that
not self-serving at all, but I appreciate
whether
it.
you call me or somebody else, call somebody who has been around for a little while and has some track record, and stop making, quick decisions on what to do based on fear.
But we have 170 years of experience on this call, so I think we've got that covered.
Okay.
I knew there was a lot. I didn't know it was 170.
Yeah, it sure is. Kim, how about you? What opportunities, what are you telling clients?
I tell people, and I work with folks, especially young folks, set a goal and let that goal be we're never going to see, I don't see, and most of you would agree, we're not going to see a lessening demand for rental properties in our area. Right now, everyone can see that inventory of say 2,500 and below rental homes are low in our area. Set a goal, buy one house a year, buy one house every other year. There is no faster way to grow and accumulate wealth than real estate. So decide you're going to buy a house a year and use the leverage of your equity and your other properties to help buy future properties. But there is no way to grow a really nice nest egg than rental properties, and you have someone else paying for them, as in the rent payments. So that's my biggest piece of advice to my clients is this is just going to be a blip. Continue looking to buy rental properties because there is always going to be that demand for rental properties in our area.
I think it's interesting too, is there was a national statistic talking about where the renters, they said basically 30% of renters didn't pay their rent nationally. We know that's not to be true in our market. At least we have about 400 doors that we manage, and we were only about 5%. So we were certainly a lot less than the national average. So people are still paying that rent, making that investment. It's not to say there won't be some impact down the road, but currently we're not seeing what they're saying nationally. So if you are looking to invest in real estate, look at the individual market, pay attention to the statistics locally, and don't just drown out that national media when they give you those huge statistics. Stephen, I'll let you wrap up with this question. What is it that you see? What opportunities? What are you telling your clients?
Everybody's touched on many of them here, and I do think just for the general public, looking at rental home opportunities in this part of the world is a great idea. I said this, I can't remember if it was this forecast or the one before, but we're in an area that's going to continue to grow no matter what, whether it's because of climate, because of job growth, because of transportation, with all these great benefits. And there's only so many really great recreational properties out there. At the end of the day, if you go out and you go own one of these recreational properties, if you have enough money to go out and own a piece of land that you get to actually enjoy in 20 or 30 years, want to sell it or let your kids enjoy it, now's the time to do that because those opportunities are out there and they'll never be more affordable. As Frank said at the forecast this year, land like that in North Georgia will never be more affordable than it is right now. So that's kind of my recommendation to people out there, but things have picked up drastically for me in the last 2 weeks. We're very busy. There's a lot of hope. There's no need to panic. Work out the problems you have. I'm right on with Brad is saying, make sure you pick somebody who's experienced, who's doing this full time, and good for Brad for taking the high road and not naming names. But that's exactly right. If you're going to strategize in real estate, you need to have somebody on your team who's there with you all the way through it and not jumping from ship to ship and getting all these, fly-by-night folks. Yep.
I agree. You just got to have a good attitude going into this thing. And I think experience certainly speaks for itself. I did want to leave an opportunity for some questions. We just have a few minutes left and I wanted to make sure. So if any of you have questions, you can certainly get on the chat. And it looks like I have one here from Mary Mixon. It says, has the fact that we are a hot spot as seen on TV hurt our image of being a safe community? I think that's a great question. Kim, I'll let you start with that one.
I was just replying to somebody telling them that I too was here working on the Hiwassee River with fiber optic internet, Tommy. So I missed that. Say again.
Yeah. So the question was Northeast Georgia Medical or Hall County has been designated as a hot spot. Is that hurting our image as a community, as a place to invest or move? How's that impacting us?
I don't see it hurting us really. We are the poultry processing capital of the world. And that's why we are a hotspot. When you identify all of the hotspots, there's a reason. It's either a nursing home or a meat processing plant. And in our case, it's because we are the poultry capital of the world. So no, I don't see that. I haven't seen anybody look at us in a negative light because of that.
Commercially, how about you guys? John, commercially, any negative impact?
Not at this point. I was talking to an executive at Northeast Georgia Medical yesterday, and she was telling me that they have about 35% of the hospital with COVID patients, and that occupancy is starting to come down. So that's good news. Hopefully that'll continue. In Dawson County, we've had about 75 or 80 cases, but you know, we've been fortunate so far that there really has not been a huge outbreak like they had in Albany. But I don't think things like that tarnish the image of the community. It's just an issue that, as a nation, we're all dealing with, and so this too shall pass.
Yep, it's temporary. Absolutely. Any more thoughts, Brad, Stephen, Diane, on that?
I was just going to say, and not to be insensitive here, but I've always said Gainesville's a hot spot, just a different kind. So maybe we should do like some of these 24-hour news channels and take it out of context and use it the way we want. But we've done such a great job as far as the kind of work that we have. You know, the Chamber of Commerce has pushed it. You know, our government leaders have done a great job of getting the kind of mix of employment here that it needs to be sustainable. So we're not live and die by one thing, you know, so I don't see that it's hurt us at all. We're still in the direct line of growth.
Still have a great quality of life. We're still going to be a desirable place to be. So very well said. I'm not seeing any more questions. I don't know if any of you have any other comments that you'd like to close with, but I'd certainly like to thank each of you for being here and passing on your knowledge of what's happening in the marketplace. I hope that this has been informative to our panel of folks, our group listening in or watching. I think our highest, we were about 105 folks on. So that was certainly great to see a lot of people chiming in. So anyway, I want to thank everybody for listening and watching. And I wanted to thank each of you. Hope you all stay safe, and wish you and your families the best.